Hello, and welcome to the IronMaiden. My name's Abby, and today I'm going to teach you how I beat Verdance. Now, previously in my deck tech, I said that this was a fairly easy matchup, and that was true back when Verdance first came out. But the lists have been heavily refined, and Vynnset has changed too. And now some of these things are very different, so I'm going to teach you how I like to come into the matchup. So first, you need to figure out if they're going to value game you, fatigue you, or try and combo you. They have a lot of flexibility both in their play and in their deck building. So the Verdance has all the initiative in the matchup. If they come in as a heavy fatigue deck, then you will have to bring in the right type of cards, but you maybe don't know that. If they come in with a value deck, they can still change in the middle of the game. They have that flexibility, and if they come in a combo deck, they might be able to well. So, like I'm saying, basically they can bring three different types of decks already, and they can also change during the matchup. Second thing to consider is, are they arcane or physical or hyper defensive? Same kind of idea. The value decks play either a lot of arcane damage or a lot of physical damage, whereas the defensive decks try and fatigue or combo you. And then are they playing combo, including healing pot? So most Verdance will play rampant growth and life into pretty much every matchup, and probably they will play it into you. But are they playing healing pot? They can, and they have to if they want to combo. However, it is a no block, and adding 6 no blocks to the deck could be worrying for them. So you know if they use healing pot that they either don't consider this a matchup that they have testing into, or that they think they can combo you. Probably wrong. Here's my checklist. Need to try to be lower life than them when possible. That's because we're going to play Reaping Blade into the matchup. When we are lower than them, they cannot gain life. Really important to stop a lot of their game. Need to avoid skipping turns to set up, because of Scour mostly, and some other cards. If we set up too much, we put out a few Malefics or lots of Rune Chants, and then our opponent pitches 9, Scours, and blows up all of our Rune Chants and all our Malefics. We basically skipped 2 turns, took damage. It's just atrocious, so we need to have kind of medium, smaller turns. Then watch their blocking habits and count how many 2 blocks you see. So most decks will play Fruits blue and Summerfall, but are they playing Fruit yellow, Fruit red, or maybe they're playing Cadaverous Tilling, or in the gameplay I'll show you, they were playing Humble, which means that they are definitely more physical and also have too many 2 blocks to fatigue me. And then lastly, the end game is tricky. You need to try and go in strong. So like I said before, you need to not take turns off to set up. You need to find setup somewhere in there while you're also threatening their hand. If you go into sub 10 life area with no Malefics or don't have your Quill hand, be in a lot of danger of bricking, and then they turn the table on you, and then you pretty much die. Here's the two big problems in the matchup, Scour and Warmongers. Scour is a massive problem. It does define the matchup. Warmongers is okay. You can play through it. Warmongers you can overcome using pre-planning. So that means having Rune Chants at the end of any given turn. Or if you don't have that, you can choose Peace, Banish, maybe play a Dirge, and then Arsenal and Pass. If they force you to set up like that, not too bad. And if they choose Peace and draw a Felling, they'll be pretty upset. If they choose War and they get some of their arcane spells, they'll be pretty upset. So it's also kind of annoying for them. Scour is really, really problematic. So without Scour, Verdance probably would be a 70% matchup, in my opinion. Seems like it would be pretty easy, but every time they play a Scour, you lose about 20%. goes to a 50-50 after one good scour. If they play a second scour, probably lose because they destroy your next turn coming up, I mean, and they do you a bunch of arcane damage. And if they have boots, they have storm striders, and they scour during your turn, then you can be really, really screwed because you can't even pitch and prevent that damage. You're already kind of locked into trying to hit them that turn. Right, let's go to that video. Go. So, as you can see, we're going to bring Reaping Blade, we're going to bring Tunic, and we're going to bring Velvoid 2 Helmet. We do that because Face Purgatory is quite unlikely to get the discard value. They don't try and arsenal cards, and they also don't have Go Again. And when they do send a big attack, I also usually get disrupted like a Felling. Not worth trying, so we're just going to go with Ebonfold for having 2 more life. Very strong opening hand. I can banish a Solid Rune Gate in Deathly Wail, play a Funeral Moon. I can arsenal a Machinations. Next turn, I should be able to double, or possibly, with a really good hand, triple Rune Gate. They get to gain 2 life with a yellow fruit. Notable, like I said before, that's a lot of 2 blocks. So that's a 2 block for arcane and a 2 block for physical. Not sure why they would be playing that. Probably leans them towards comboing, or maybe it's a popper, a think hard, and then they send a third tide. Reasonable. It's one of their only ways to convert a hand. Going to pitch yellow. Go pitch, pitch, because I only have 1 arcane barrier. So you can pitch on 2 sources of 1, which is why I think it's generally okay to bring 1 arcane barrier into this Verdance deck. Could consider playing arcane barrier in your helmet slot, but that would mean that you would have to bring a different helmet and it would eat more sideboard. Probably not worth it. You really don't want to lose Tunic or Creepers or Reaping Blade. So I think this is the best option. Double Malefic. Then we can play our Machinations. Accidentally skipped the turn there. The old Talishar. Accidentally or purposely? Maybe I've purposely. They big scour me. So that's scour number 1. Now this matchup's going to be difficult instead of easy. Bunch of arcane damage, but this hand does things, so I guess we're keeping it. Surge, Machinations. And we have Eloquence, Eulogies with guaranteed damage pretty much from the Overpower, as well as Cull, make it action point. So we can, in this case, do something like Deathly Wail into Eloquent Eulogy, Close Chain, get 1 Rune Chant and 1 Eloquence, then play Cull, then play the second Eloquent Eulogy. Or we can do the same sort of thing, but use Tunic for Reaping Blade. Or we can Arsenal Cull, or we can play Cull and keep the Eloquence for another big turn later. So many options. Card is ridiculous. So here they have a 2 block, they have a yellow and a red that they can't use to gain life. So excellent position here for me. They basically fail to block completely. I'm going to cull them now. Sorry, I'm going to cull them in uh, response here. I want to see if they'll pitch for their Arcane Barrier, because that would be really wasteful. I'm going to cull, pay 1 life, so that when we close chain, we get 2 rune chants from our Deathly Whale. So I chose, in this case, instead of having a big turn now, to have a 2 rune chants going into next turn, as well as an Eloquence. We draw a pretty interesting hand, especially because we have our Eloquence here. So we can play Phantom Banshee. If they take damage, we get to do Cull, Funeral Moon shenanigans. If they do not take damage, we can Creepers to play one of these, then pay life, and then play the other. So there is nothing they can do to completely stop this turn. They can only make it more awkward. They pitch, they think about blocks, and they decide to block 6, taking 1. They've taken 1. I can double spell to get 2 action points. Have to go into full control. Remember, if you're playing Talishar, this is how we do it. If you're on paper, you can just tell your opponent in response to the Eloquence trigger, I'm going to play this again, get a second action point. They don't understand, of course. Call the judge, they'll explain it. Then we can play our Eloquent Eulogy. And then we end the turn once again with an Eloquence. So it used to be that Eloquent Eulogy was a fairly it was a good card as a 1 for 4, but it was a fairly middling card in the sense that it didn't. The Eloquence wasn't often important. But now that we have Cull as well as Funeral Moon, it's very easy to set up action point gains with these Eloquence. We draw a no attack hand, but we have a widespread in Arsenal, in Banish. So I could banish Shadow Puppetry, play out this hand. Instead, I'm going to take a setup turn here because I have Revel. If I get to play this Revel next turn, I can do a double or even triple attack turn. Should surpass 20 damage. I Arsenal the Shadow Puppetry because Revel is not a replaceable card. It's the only one that does what it does, really. Whereas Shadow Puppetry is replaceable with lots of types of go again, or even just creepers and something else like Dirge. I'm thinking about Plow Under here, of course, is where I mean. So if they Plow Under me and they lose my Revel, I won't have a choice. I won't get it back for a long time. So I think it's better to Arsenal card that I care about the least in this case. They Aether Tide me and then they Felling me. I could have pitched the Aether Tide expecting a spell, but I did expect to lose a card to something like Felling. So instead, I chose to take that 1, and then if they were going to surge me, I could use my Ebb and Fold. And if they weren't going to surge me, I have that spare card. In this case, if I had pitched and then they'd played that Felling, I'd be in a lot of trouble. So I think that was the right choice in that situation. Pay life to Shadow Puppetry, play my Deathly Whale. So they're going to be taking some damage. Pitch for the rest of it. They have another 2 block once again, so my Shadow Puppetry triggers. Malefic, definitely don't want to banish that, want to draw that one. Then we can Revel. So we go to 7. Now if I play my Annihilation, my Dirge will be banished because I have paid life. So I actually need to play my Dirge here, which I remember to do, because I cannot keep it. Turns into 2 damage, which is fine. This is a another 15 damage here, top of the what, 9 we just did. Definitely surpassing the 20 damage threshold. There's a plow under. Now we're even. So they can gain life, and we're going to probably hit them this turn. Turns out we're not going to, but that's okay. Want to be lower, so we can take blood debt here to be lower than them, which removes some of their options. Out of Succumb and Shadow Puppetry, I choose to Arsenal Shadow Puppetry, only because it blocks 2. So theoretically, it is less flexible in my hand than Succumb is. Succumb pitches 2 and blocks 3. And is fairly strong. I can't use all of it though, so I'm going to be looking to get rid of some of it, or keep all of it, actually, because I can pitch the Annihilation, play Phantom Wraith, and play the second Phantom Wraith. But in this case, I just want to be a little bit higher, so I just decide to go for a more reserved play. They swing a fruit, so we can block this with our second Phantom Wraith, which we now have no use. So now the turn becomes very strong because we get to go Shadow Puppetry into Whale, into Phantom Wraith with Succumb. There's a second source of go again from the Succumb, which means that we can Tunic for Sword. So this is going very strong into the late game. We have a fully powered Malefic to give us rune chance each turn. Still have Cool Hand, both for our barrier and our get out of jail free card. And we haven't used Creepers either. So we are fully set. Use our Quill Hand. This is the turn where I decide they shouldn't ever get the chance to threaten me again. And now it's just all up to how our hands kind of convert into each other. Do they draw hands that block really well? Do I draw hands that attack really poorly? They block with their bark skin. Weirdly enough, they don't also block with a non-attack action to get full value out of it. So that's okay. They maybe have a plan. They probably want to try and keep some of their hands to threaten me, especially because I don't have barrier anymore. But now, with Succumb, that's all lost. I'm going to rip apart their hand, and now they're just in block mode after that. Obviously, I look at this hand. Scour is both the best blocking card and the best card for them to play. So I'm taking that all the time. Close Chain, play Phantom Wraith. They pitch a healing potion because it doesn't block, of course. They also have gain 3 sigil, and they have a 4 block because of their embodiment. They will not die this turn, even after the sword swing, because of that gain 3. But the game is closing down. They effectively stay on 4 at the end of this turn. I don't have any rune chance going into my turn, but I do draw a Eloquent Eulogy and Envelop in Darkness. When we're playing Sword, Envelop in Darkness is suddenly a very powerful card. We can do a play like this, where we pitch a yellow, or a blue, doesn't really matter, and we can swing my sword after the attack. Sword often is used from Tunic, because the deck really wants to pitch, but when you have the envelops, suddenly it becomes fairly reasonable. So they finally gain their 3 life last turn, so that they don't die to unblockable rune damage, of course. They're pretty close to being dead here. This is an attack for 8, and then an attack for 3. Oh, sorry, 8, 9, 10, and then an attack for 3, 13. So they should be losing life unless they have bark skin value or some sort of 4 block. They go AFK for a while here, I believe. Thinking really, really hard. They figure it out. Yes, they are getting their bark skin value. And then they play a red Rootbound out. With Decompose just so they can turn on their hero ability. Totally reasonable. Then swing our sword. Yep. Then we swing our sword for 1 and 3. And we close the chain and get an Eloquence after as well. So in this case, they can block and keep a card and go to 1, which they decide to do. Blocking with a Scour because they need lots of cards in hand. Now, if they had Storm Striders, they would be in a better position because they could Arsenal that Scour, play it during our turn. But they would have less life because Well Grounded already blocked for them. So you have to consider both sides. Like, would they get to this point if they hadn't have Well Grounded? But also, if they did and they had Storm Striders, they would probably turn this game around. Now this hand's a little bit awkward because the only Rune Gate is Annihilation. Expensive for what I've got. So instead, I can just play it, set a Rune Chant for next turn, and try and use next turn to finish them off. Pretty much have to block with their whole hand. In this case, they Healing Potion into Plume to get a free block. They presumably have not enough blocks to cover this. And then they shoot me for 1 arcane, gain some life. We have Cull. We have Deathly Whale. So if they take damage, this turn is extremely good. But also, we have Tunic Up and Creepers. So if they don't take damage, it's basically as good because we can still Creepers in Cull get 2 or get 1 Rune Chant because they won't have taken damage. Means we won't be able to play our Phantom Wraith. Oh no, we do because we have a Malefic Rune Chant. Is that right? No, we don't have a Malefic Rune Chant. We won't get to play our Phantom Wraith, but we will grip their hand and take a Rune Chant into next turn. In this case, they do take some damage, presumably because they have life gain. So they don't want to pitch, they would rather just gain the life. We're going to cull here in reactions. Doesn't make a huge difference as long as they do it before the Phantom Wraith. I will pay 1 life so that I can make 2 Rune Chants from my Whale. Get my action point from my Eloquence. And then this game is completely over because now I can Phantom Wraith into a 1-card hand. For some reason I forget that and activate Tunic. And then I remember, oh yeah, I have Phantom Wraith. So I just swing that. But yes, this is 8 damage, 1 card, cannot block all of that. So they die. Awesome. You can see fairly close game. If we had drawn a really, really bad hand, like a 4 attack hand, and that end game, they probably could have turned the tides on us. It's important to go in strong and try and close as quickly as you can. But also, we have creepers still active. Still have our tunic, so we're not actually in a bad position here, even though we're fairly low life. That's the end of our video today. If you'd like to learn more about different matchups, I have other videos on lots of tricky matchups for Vynnset, as well as some of the good ones. I have my deck tech, and I've even got some older videos. Thank you, and have a nice day.